Simon says heads down.
Okay.
Simon says heads up. Simon says heads fall down. Simon says heads rise up.
Did I do it?
Foreshadowing. You win. You win. Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of the Two Fish at the Table Poker Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Legend and One on Poker Stars.
And I'm your other host, East Coast Sam on Poker Stars. OMG, I love Bjork on Discord. Welcome to this little episode that we've got for you. Not as much coverage as we usually do. We're going to be talking about a couple of documentaries, as well as the Mind Sport Olympiad, and we're going to be responding to your comments. That's right. We are reading them. This is our strong bad email style responses. So
yeah, every episode we always say comment your thoughts, and we don't get a ton of comments here and there, but today we finally have at least some to discuss. So I figured we'd open up an episode with that to start off with. We got some comments on our most recent documentary part 3 episode where some guy with the name Zero Any, like word 1, said Stu Unger's doc is good. Also, the film was okay. I of course mentioned that we reviewed it in both podcasts and a podcast previous, so you can check that out at that point. We also had a guy named Frosty2211 say, "Would you guys mind doing Apocalypse Now, please?" I'm sorry, bro. We are a poker podcast. I appreciate you enjoying our movie review style with Tilt, but that's not going to be our focus right now. And then Frosty2211 also commented on the first part of our Tilt review, two-parter, with he loved this series. I asked him what he loved about it, and his comments were, "It's hard to put my hand on it, but I watched it originally on TV. I can still hear the commercials on from TV saying, from the producers of Rounders, that took me in. He loved everything. The story had holes in it, but it was overall enjoyable. I didn't get that deep into the issues, but I just watched it with a beer or joints." That's fair. He rewatched it at times, and even though he notices the errors, he still enjoys the fun of it. And then he was also questioning, didn't different episodes write different episodes, different episodes? And yes, that's true. We did point that out that especially the back third of the show had unique writers to it for the more poker tournament heavy content. And I did think that was, again, probably the best stretch of the show was those 2 episodes with guys like Phil Hellmuth and like Eric Seidel in the action there. So that was those were his comments here. He also said he thought that ESPN was jumping on the moneymaker wagon at that time, which is definitely true. Anything being about poker was gold at the time, except for obviously Tilt in that case. They kind of threw things together and asked questions later. Frosty goes on with, he says, you got the guys that did Rounders, the quintessential poker movie at the time. Why not give poker series a chance with what they were thinking? And it had potentially things, the rumored second season maybe that could have improved things, but once ESPN saw what they got, it was obviously done after 1 season. So thank you for your comments there, Frosty. To kind of paraphrase it a bit, I appreciate you responding to our reviews there. And again, if anybody else ever has any comments about content we reviewed or what you want us to review or our thoughts on that content, we're always welcome to read those comments, and we will share them in a future episode.
Yeah, it's funny that he mentioned the second season, because I read somewhere, and take this with a grain of salt, from somebody who owns some of the chips that they use as props in the show, that they were supposedly going to do a second season. They were flip-flopping back and forth, ESPN, whether or not they wanted to do it, but they ultimately decided not to do it because the production crew had rented most of their equipment and had given them away to already other productions. So it had been too much money to bring that equipment back together or buy new equipment or whatever. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly cool if you like it, Frosty. By all means, like if you like tilts, that's totally cool. I mean, you mentioned at the end of your comment that some people kind of liked it for what it was. And yeah, like I've seen on Reddit, and I've seen reviews of places who, reviewers who say that they like the show fine, or they had some problems with it or whatever. But, to each their own. If you like it, that's totally fine. I mean, I do hope that people check out Tilt, because it should be as big as Rounders within the poker community. I mean, it's just so amazing. And I'm glad that you like our movie reviews. We'll hopefully be able to get to do more at some point. Apocalypse Now is a good movie. I've heard great things about it. I've seen little clips of it over the years. I think it's phenomenal for what I've seen of it. But yeah, we're trying to focus on poker here, so maybe next time.
Yes, and so alluding back to my little intro bit, what someone says there, a brand new poker documentary was unveiled on YouTube this past week, actually, called The Rise and Fall of the Poker Dream. 95-minute long movie, documentary length, and we wanted to capitalize. I mean, we talked about a lot of documentaries that were at this point a decade or more older. So it's just kind of nice to have something that's kind of more modern and more relevant to the current poker scene. Plus, it's brand new, so it's a bit more fresh in the world to discuss, and maybe more people are interested in hearing about it. So we thought it was a good idea to watch it, and it's funny. I enjoyed it. It kind of falls in maybe the middle to upper tier of my hierarchy of these poker documentaries, and I'm excited to talk about it too.
Yeah, this is a really interesting documentary. It follows a guy named Oscar, who is a cash game player, not particularly prominent in the poker scene or anything. He plays mainly 1-2, so very low stakes, but he holds his own and he seems to make a profit and enough money to make a living, but just barely. And he's in a bit of a rut in that he wants to make more money and ladder up, but he isn't quite sure of how to do that. So he takes classes at the Solve for Why Academy with Matt Berkey and a couple other players, including friends of his. And it's really about his journey over, I think, nearly a year, if not longer than that. The documentary takes place, mixed with a lot of clips from professionals talking about various different topics. And yeah, this is a really interesting documentary for Oscar's story. And I would actually call it very emotionally mature and complicated. There's a lot of really heavy emotional displays from Oscar. I don't mean in terms of him crying or anything, but I mean, he talks a lot about his upbringing, how his parents and his sister struggled in life, how he's just in this rut and he isn't sure of what to do in poker. He's clearly a smart guy. He clearly has some of the principles down, but he just doesn't know where he's supposed to go. And there's a lot of interviews of people, Matt Berkey and others, actually criticizing Oscar on a lot of different parts of his game. A lot of stuff is put out in the open on display here, and it makes for a fairly rich experience, I think.
Oh, for me, it's funny because the Oscar. There's kind of really in my head. There's two halves to this documentary. There's the Oscar half, and then there's the everybody else half.
Right.
And, some of the interviews about poker, about how to approach life through the poker lens, is really engaging. We have probably my favorite stretch of time in this entire documentary is a series of interviews back to back that talk about what drove people to leave poker.
Yeah.
It's the idea of maintaining yourself in the poker world because the game is always evolving, players are getting better, you have to put in the work. In Oscar's case, it's kind of putting in empty calories of work into his poker game, where he's playing a lot of hours, he's playing the same stakes, he's got one goal in mind, whereas Matt Berkey and Christian So, their idea is you have to look from a wider lens of where you're going, the direction you want to take yourself in, and exposing yourself to a little bit of risk to potentially reap the rewards, because they acknowledge that Oscar has potential. They say they have a prototype of a top poker player in him, but you have to put in certain types of work, not just raw work, but certain levels of work. That's part of what the Academy is all about, to take these these single-celled organisms and turn them into a multi-complex organism in the poker world. So Oscar's story, I actually think, is kind of paced a little awkwardly. It doesn't quite flow super organically, and it kind of comes in and out of focus a little bit for my taste. But unlike other films that we've covered that kind of had two halves, or one half was substantially better than the other one, these halves, they do kind of flow together more or less pretty well, and both halves, I think, are valuable to the viewing audience for this movie.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of interviews from a lot of different people. Garrett Edelston's in this, Nick Schulman's in this, a lot of different people. And, the common idea behind that is, here's this narrative of Oscar that we're building, and then we can kind of cut out to other people's perspectives who have similar experiences on, and, you go back and forth between the two. And it's definitely a lot smoother than, Search for the American Dream, where it's, 30 seconds of footage of the A plot, and then it's a minute and a half of just all the sorts of interview stuff. And as I mentioned, as with Oscar, there's, again, a lot of emotional work on display here, that you have people who have admitted that they've stopped playing poker and left the game for very similar reasons that Oscar states. They just didn't find enough money to be made off of poker. There were other avenues for them to go in. A lot of people can't handle the swings. There's this montage about blaming variance for your problems instead of taking responsibility for your actions. I mean, that's really the big crux of this movie, is just Oscar taking responsibility for himself. Like, he's a perfectly fine guy. He pays the bills. He's not, a mean person or anything, but it's just about accepting that you're not going to get everything out of poker that you expect to get out of, which is, I think, again, a message of a lot of emotional resonance for people.
There's also a considerable number of sort of montages of Poker Go content. A lot of classic main events are shown at the top of the documentary. Moneymaker winning, some footage from 06, from 2010 are shown. Interviews about kind of the peak poker era, like the golden age of poker, being that 2003 to 2006 sort of era before the online gambling restrictions, before online poker became so prominent that people were sort of wrangling their portion of the money from the fruitful poker scene. And I read a couple of comments about this documentary on Reddit and on YouTube, saying that they thought that the film felt too much like a advertisement for Solve for Why. And I kind of understand where they're coming from, but I don't think it's that much of a shill for Solve for Why. I mean, yes, Matt Berkey does get a couple of scenes where he's just talking to his students uninterrupted, but I didn't think it was too indulgent. And also, probably again, one of the cooler parts of the film was that at the Academy they filmed the table like a TV cash game would be. They have graphics, and then they comment in the booth about their students, and then that's just a really cool idea. Like I would be really excited just to, like, for one day show up, play poker for fun, and then just hear them comment about my play, whether it sucks or is amazing. I don't care. It'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, and I can tell that this documentary is intended not necessarily to be for hardcore poker people. I think they're definitely trying to build a human story, make Oscar sympathetic to people who are not too familiar with poker. So it's kind of necessary to have scenes where you explain a little bit of the strategy and mindset behind poker, so that way people can understand it. Yeah, I mean, I didn't feel it was too preachy for Solve for Why. For Poker Go, maybe a little bit more so. I mean, the worst part of this documentary is just how much footage of main events and cash games and shows that they have. A couple of times it's okay. Like, I think my favorite edit was Oscar's talking about losing with pocket kings, and they cut at that moment to the Will Cassou fan with pocket kings when he had kings and Griffin Bender had aces. I thought that was kind of cute. But there's a lot of sequences where somebody's talking and then they've just got footage from all these different hands and things. It feels like temp footage. When you're editing a documentary and you have a clip of somebody talking, you might splice in some footage just so that you can keep the clip of the audio. It doesn't feel completely polished as it should be. I mean, the rest of on a technical level, it's well shot. They have a high quality camera. The audio sounds good. The interviews are well done. There's no lighting issues or editing issues or anything. But yeah, I mean, it's all that footage just isn't really necessary. Could have been cut out.
And besides the story of Oscar and then Matt Berkey with his Academy, there's a couple of spots that are meant to kind of be a bit more informative for the audience. They have Maria Konnikova talking about game theory.
Mm-hmm.
We learn about the sort of the sunk cost fallacy. Just little details that I think are kind of nice just to kind of throw in there that are on theme but not too off topic from the main narrative. If there's really only, again, I think that the Oscar stuff isn't quite I guess timeline super well, because we don't really see him in the Academy all that much beyond him playing that one cash game session and then being upset at how angry, being upset at how negative the comments about his play was, which is kind of a cool idea, but we don't really see what the next step for him was as a result of that experience of being critiqued by teachers. I would have liked to have seen that maybe affect him in a future poker scene or something like that. And it's not terrible the way it's done. I just think it could be a little better there.
I mean, I think the point of that is that he's so resistant to change and criticism that he's not gonna touch base with that. Because yeah, I mean, the next scene we see, he's an Uber driver and he's no longer really playing poker anymore. So I think that was supposed to be the message of that. I do agree with you. It would have been nice to have seen maybe a hand where we see Oscar play with another player and we hear the commentary and we get to see that really play out and pace out. That would have been nice, but yeah.
And so again, there's kind of an epilogue and then another epilogue, sort of where time carded in the future where Oscar's away from poker. Then he plays a little bit and then kind of gets back in the swing of things 6 weeks later, where he's playing. He's kind of having a wave of confidence where he had a good week. He's playing 5 days a week, and it's funny that he's playing 1-2. That was the cash game that I played back in 2021 with Adam for a little bit, where I did bust. And I really wonder how much money was he really making playing 1-2, because it's mentioned he had some losing days or some break-even days, and it's kind of sad, the idea of a player playing for that kind of money, and it's an unstable, uncertain environment. And you're just kind of surviving. It's like almost as if he's homeless on the streets, just trying to get some quarters from passersby. So I kind of draw a parallel to that style of living.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that he's at 1-2, which I think nobody has a romantic sense of. He's not trying to win a bracelet at the World Series of Poker. He's not an online nosebleed guy like we've seen before. He's just a guy trying to scrape by and make a living.
Mhm.
And to see him go and drive, and he seems, it's like, hey, I have to go drive. That's what I have to do for work. And then we cut, and now he's like back in the game, and he's in this restaurant. And he's like, he's got a sandwich, and he's like, now people are asking me to coach them. Like, oh my God, like he seems all swept up in the moment. And then we get this really interesting moment with Matt Berkey and Orlando where they're sitting down and they're like, his games are going to fall apart. He's playing underground poker. Like, this is not going to last very long. And Berkey even says, are we enabling him by not telling him, hey, these games are going to fall apart? And Orlando doesn't have a good answer to that. Like, that's, again, a very real human moment where it's like, how do we tell our friend he's not going to make it, that he has to do something else? It's tough.
Yeah, so the triangle of Christian, Matt, and Oscar, the debate between whose approach to poker is correct is so interesting, but it really isn't given, I think, the time and attention it could have gotten. And it's, again, a little bit of another missed opportunity on a small degree there, because I'm happy to at least ask the question, which is better than not asking it at all. But it's a good debate, and we can even debate right now. Whose approach do you think was more appropriate to this situation for Oscar? Was it, slow and steady wins the race, or all or nothing? And I think in Oscar's case, because his family's not super well off. It was an accident settlement that he spent on his family to kind of keep them above water. And I feel like if he was like married and had a wife that was working, it's maybe a slightly different story because you have some income coming in your way. But I feel like personally, paying the bills takes first priority. You can't think about buying a mansion until you can afford a small apartment.
Yeah, I mean, this was in the movie Rounders, where there's Mike McDermott, who's trying to go for the big swings and win the World Series of Poker bracelet, and his friend, who's, I can't remember the character's name, but he's played by John Turturro in the film, and he says, "Look, I'm a grinder. Like, I have to pay for my kids. I have to pay rent." Oscar's clearly in that mindset, and yeah, I mean, I agree with him. I mean, he's not a high income guy. He seems happy to play 1-2 as long as he's emotionally happy. That's fine. Maybe move up to 2-4. I don't know. I mean, why not? It's a tough situation. That idea of, do you play it safe and eke a living by, or do you try to go for glory and risk falling on your butt? It's a tough call to make. I mean, I don't know. It's a tough situation.
Or in my case, I mean, he became an Uber driver, so we had some income there, which of course, balance between playing, losing the money, get some Uber, playing, working as a driver again. I feel like if you can play recreationally almost, and maybe take some bigger shots if you have income to supplement that. That's a regular, established, salaried employee, but not this sort of freelance Uber driver. Okay, turn on the Uber app. Okay, I'm driving, and then maybe I'll play poker later. Like, that's just not a situation I think anyone should be in when they're debating. He's like 40 years old. It's like, some humans have, at this point in their lives, they have retirement accounts, they have savings. He's got none of that. He's behind the 8 ball. I know that everyone's finances in this country can be very different, but I don't know. I feel like it's like, he's just really surviving. He's got nothing planned for his future. He's going to be in deep trouble when he gets older.
Yeah, I mean, they've established that he really put poker on the line for him, that he didn't go to college and he had a degree or anything. Yeah, I mean, but that's a situation a lot of people are in. A lot of people work their jobs just to make money, and maybe they're dead end jobs. Maybe there's not too many chances for promotion. It's tricky. I mean, what exactly do you do? You're clearly a smart person. What do you do with all that skills and all that intelligence? It's hard to get a job when you're a professional poker player for so long. Uber, driving or being a waiter or something. There's not too many alternatives you have.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's a product of it being, we only reviewed one movie for this episode, but it definitely was the one that sparked the most thought-provoking conversations internally for me after watching, which is a strength. But again, a couple of those questions that I was asking myself, I would have looked a little bit more to the documentary to answer for me, rather than me answering myself.
Yeah, I mean, again, I found this very emotionally rich. That you just have this guy who's where do you go in life when you're in this situation? What risks do you take? how do you improve your game? You know, he's not going to be Phil Ivey tier, but he can still make improvements if he just gets over certain things. Can he or can he not get over things? I mean, this footage was filmed, it looked like, I'm not sure what, I think like 2019 or so. I'm not quite sure.
I think it was just before COVID. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just before COVID. I'd be curious to see, you know, it's been 4 years. I mean, if the movie does well, it'd be nice to see an update to see where Oscar's at and where his head is at. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a pretty good documentary, which again, just too much stock footage, a couple of things that could have been done better, a couple of things that could have been better paced, but still something that I think is worthwhile even for people who don't follow poker religiously.
Yeah, you know, I originally gave it a score of 6.5 out of 10. I think talking about it with you just now, I think I'll put it up to a 7 out of 10 for me. I enjoyed it. There's a couple of flaws. I think I don't think it quite is a 1 + 1 = 3 moment where the content elevates itself like I did with Nosebleed or with that online poker documentary we watched. But I definitely think this is one of the better ones we've reviewed, and we reviewed like 11 movies by this point, so that's not bad.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. I think it's a good movie. I think it's got something. There's a heart here. There's a lot here to talk about and unlock and unload. And for somebody who I think is in a similar situation like Oscar, who plays cash games a lot and has some of their income attached to it, you're gonna really find this touching, I think.
Yeah. So again, well, it gets 2 thumbs up from us on this podcast, guys. It is on YouTube. Dropped this week, so you can check it out and form your own thoughts and post your comments about the movie in that video or in this video, and we'll see what happens there. Moving on to the latest updates in the 2023 Mind Sport Olympiad. Not only do we have a couple of events to talk about, we can also discuss what our current rankings are in the updated global standings in this poker gaming community. So 2 events have happened since our last podcast. One was the 5-card draw event, which we mentioned before on our last podcast. It's a game that I've literally played close to 0 my entire life, no matter what platform of poker I was playing on in my lifetime.
Just a little bit for me, very small amount.
Yeah, and so literally as I was signing into PokerStars to play this event, I was like Googling basic 5-card draw strategy, like when to draw 1 card, what hands to have to draw 2 cards, etc. And I guess it made sense on that degree, and it was definitely a learning curve to start off with. I don't know about how your experience was right off the bat.
Yeah, same here. I mean, again, very, very small amounts of experience in 5-card draw. I mean, it's like I have 5 cards and I only have 1 opportunity to improve my hand, and there's not enough rounds of betting. There's just so much going on. So yeah, I mean, I was having to Google just basic strategy. You know, if I have 3 cards to a flush, do I chase the flush? I have a pair of 7s. Is that good? Should I go with that? Basic stuff. I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah, and so it's funny, as the event started out, I was doing okay. I knocked out a player that was very aggressive at my table. I think I had like 3 aces or something, and then I moved in with like 3 6s and didn't improve or something like that. So I actually was up to I think 17 or 18,000 at one point.
Yeah,
relatively early. I think the total event had in total like 31 players or something like that, low 30s in the total field, and so it was okay. And then I just didn't really pick up too many big pots. I would always win like maybe the blinds pre-draw or like a small pot after they would fold after the draw. So I just was kind of slowly grinding down, and then I think I finished in like 18th place or something like that. Not very far, but my last 10 I had like 4s and 3s, and I think it like folded around to me or something. So I had like 5 big blinds, something crazy. So I just went all in, and the guy had a better 2 pair. I didn't hit a 4-outer on my draw, so I was out like 18th place. So it was unremarkable, but I don't think I really could have done much better than that given what I had.
Yeah, so I kind of hung around for a while. I mean, I don't remember being a big stack. I mean, again, I was just trying to play tight like I usually do. And I was able to pick up a couple flushes here, pick up some hands here and there, and just hang in there. Yeah, I mean, I got 9th place, which good, but not really anywhere near a medal. I wasn't super. Yeah, I mean, I just hung in there. I don't have strong thoughts to offer.
Yeah, I think you got like what, like 13th or something like that.
I got ninth.
Ninth, excuse me. So
Hmm.
yeah, so again, not quite the final table. There was a six-handed event,
Yeah.
but still the top third of the field. So again, even when you and I don't get a medal in an event, again, it's one of the benchmarks we've established is top half of the field, maybe the final two tables, just kind of step by step. So it's not bad considering you had literally no experience playing that game at all.
Yeah, not bad. Yeah.
And then a little over a week ago was the Heads Up PLO event. You didn't have a chance to play in this one. I played in it. It just served as a good way to keep your. It's funny how Heads Up poker can kind of block out all the thoughts of other things happening around you in your life. So I was like really locked into this event that afternoon. There was 27 players in this event. Sam does not know the story at all. I did not tell him about this event. So this is
I wasn't able to play due to a family thing. So yeah, this is all new.
Right. So there was 27 players. I did not get a first round bye. Sam has been the recipient of 2 first round byes last year. I did not get that privilege. So in this event, 5-minute levels, you have 5,000 chips. Blinds, I think, begin at like 15:30 and then escalate very quickly every 5 minutes. My first opponent, I was card dead the entire first like 15 minutes of this heads up match. I was down to about 3,600 chips from my starting 5,000 after the first few minutes. But there were a couple of things that luckily kept me afloat for the most part. One is he never raised pre-flop. So I could just always see a flop in the big blind. And he would occasionally fold if I raised pre-flop. So that was, some income coming my way that way. And then after being card dead for a little bit, I won a few pots where he just overvalued a good hand. Like he had like 2 pair, I had a flush or little things like that. So about 7,000 from that point. And then I had just a huge card dead period again before the blinds were at this point 200, 400. So I was just, blinding myself down. We were the last match to finish in round 1. So literally the problem with this tournament is that once the last match ends, the next round instantly starts. So you get no break at all. There was a key pot in, I think it was the 200, 400 blind level. I had 5-5-9-4 in my hand. The flop was 9-5-3. So I have middle sets and a blocker to top sets. And of course, he has 9-9 to have top set. So the money gets in on the flop. He has, of course, top set. I have some straight outs and obviously quad outs I miss. So I'm down to 1,000 chips with the blinds 200, 400. He's at 9,000 chips. I then kind of fold down to 520 when the blinds are 250, 500. So I have 1 big blind left. He has 19 big blinds. And then I double up 3 times in a row where I was like, as big a favorite in Omaha that you can be all in before the flop or on the flop as it gets, like 70-30, 85-15. So I'm up to 4.3 thousand chips at this point. Again, I have 8 big blinds. So again, most of these hands, it kind of degenerates into like limit Omaha at this point. You limp the small blind, check. You bet 1 big blind on the flop or turn. It's a very limit hold'em or limit Omaha at that point. We hit the 1 hour mark, which is where there's the first break. So I actually have the lead. I have 5,500 chips.
Oh my God.
And then I win 1 pot. And now I have like 8,000 chips. And then the money goes in pre-flop. He doubles up. I was 37% to win the hand, I think. So maybe I overplayed a little bit, but okay. He then I put him all in when I have ace, king 5, and I think he had like queen 10-9. He hits a queen on the flop. I turn an ace on the turn to end it. So I flop and I turn a set of aces and I win. So I come back from 1 big blind at 250, 500 blinds to win. And the blinds were like 350, 700 at that point. So again, they got up so huge. So I managed to squeak in. It was 180 hands and a good, I think, 20 minutes after the most recent match had ended. So there are a bunch of just winning on me at that point.
Wow, that's cool.
I arrived to the round of 16 for round 2. This time, different story. I won the very first 2 hands. I won probably like 75% of the early pots during the smaller blind levels. Wasn't card dead. I actually had some hands, would make some hands. He never, ever tried to bluff me. it always seemed like he had it. So if he bet like one big blind on the river, I would call it, and he'd have like, you know, the nuts. But he never bluffed me, it seemed like, or he didn't put any spots in that felt bluffy to me. He also never raised pre-flop. So again, much like my round one opponent, I was just seeing every flop. I was, you know, never losing my equity pre-flop. And again, I would raise with, you know, premium Omaha hands pre-flop, and you know, you're not going to win all of them, but you know, it's still a pretty good situation. After level 3, I had a 2-to-1 ship lead. So I think by that point, the blinds get to be like 15, 100, or like 175, 150 at that point. And then I think I had the second nuts with a flush draw on the flop, and he had the nuts. And I think it was like top set against middle set again, and I had a flush draw to as backup. And I put him. I think I put him all in, and we got back to even after I lost that hand. So a bit of a rough break there. Then I won a couple of medium pots. I lost 2 ridiculous coolers, so now I'm down to 3,000 chips. Blinds again are like 200, 400, so I don't have a ton of big blinds at that point. I do get up to 6,000, just kind of one big blind at a time. Again, much like limit hold'em, you kind of win like 8 hands in a row, limit style, one big blind at a time. So it's just like a grind. It's just a matter of whose luck holds out at that point. At this point, again, I'm the last match of round 2 to go, so I'm gonna have a no break once again. And then there was this weird hand where I had pocket aces. I think I had like ace, 10, 7, 1 suit or something like that. I 3x'd it pre-flop. We checked all the way down on a scary board. I won it, showed him with 2 aces. Like,
Oh, wow.
unbelievable. So that was a pretty big turning point, I think. At the break, I had a 3-to-1 chip lead. So again, over an hour for this match as well. And then I gotta kind of blind him down. He's on a 6-to-1 chip lead. He then doubles up when he has a better flush than my flush. And then from that point, the blinds are now 400, 800. And he just like folds down to his last big blind. Like at one point, he had like 1,300 chips, big blinds. I put them all in with like whatever. He folds the 800, leaving himself with 500. So he kind of gives up by the end. And then I win when he's crippled. So I win round 2, the round of 16. Again, the last match to play in that round, which again, there were fewer matches, so I guess a bit more likely, I guess. But still, like my style is, I guess, different than the rest of the field because their matches are ending much sooner. So we get to round 3. The field is 8 people. If you win this round, you qualify for a medal because the top 4 get a medal, you know,
Right.
for 3rd and 4th. So this is where this is like, you know, let's go here. My opponent was by far the most aggro of my 3 opponents so far. He was raising pre-flop, which again was very different from my first 2 opponents. I had the early lead though. I was able to catch him a couple times, and very quickly this match became the last match of the round. So I think maybe only after like level 3 or 4, it was the last round. So it says in the corner on PokerStars there's 5 players left because you know it counts how many players are knocked out. So at this point, again, we're mostly even for most of the match. I pick off a couple of bluffs twice. That was kind of cool. 1 big blind here, 1 big blind there. Then there was this big hand. The pot was 2,000 chips on the river. I had flopped the sets, and I think the board was like ace 8-6. So I had 3 8s, and I knew I was good because he didn't raise pre-flop or he didn't bet the flop. So I bet the flop and turn. He calls me. The river is a card that completes a straight if the flop had played the straight draw. And he bets 1,800, which is like a pot size bet. And I had 3,800 behind. And I thought about this. I made a foolish call. So I'm done to 2,000. He had river to straight on me. I should have just folded because, you know, a pot down the river in that game. It's a bad call. So I'm down to 2,000. Then I fold down to 1,000. And then when the blinds are like 125 and 250, I flop 2 pair of a straight draw. I go all in. He calls and he rivers. I mean, he runners a better 2 pair, and I lose in 5th place in the whole tournament. So I got as close as you can to winning a medal in this event as it gets without winning a medal, finishing in 5th place because technically I was the last person alive in the round of to not win. So unfortunately, that last opponent, I just never really picked. Like all 3 rounds, I was never once bet into when I had the nuts. Like not one. The people just don't bet big on the river with like a a value hand that isn't the nuts. It's just so frustrating because you could have ace high flush and then just you're lucky to get maybe one big blind out of them on the river. So you really have to play a lot of, at least the person people I was playing. I don't know how the other rounds went. I wasn't watching the other tables. So I got 5th place, which is technically my highest placing in an MSO event, even if it's not on a final table or a little funny if the heads up championship. But that was my experience.
Well, welcome to the bubbling a medal club at the MSO in 2023, right? I got 4th in one event. You were this close to getting a medal.
I know, and again, I've played probably about almost 550 hands in about three hours and change of PokerStars action there, and all 3 times I was the last match, and all 3 times it was really going to just be a grind fest because they just are so. There are very few like all in call, and then the shorter player doubles up for my opponent. Like obviously I was short in the first round and I doubled it 3 times, but I was a huge favorite each time. But it's hard to get them to commit those chips, and then you just go through these 10 hands in a row. You just fold. But you have like 10, 5, 4, 2 unsuited, like just absolute garbage. So it was fun. It was stressful. It was the most heart pounding poker action of my life, probably. I wish I could have done a little bit better in that last match, but you can only do so much there. And the guy I lost to ended up getting 2nd place in the whole thing.
All right, that's not bad.
Didn't just bomb it in the next round, but so that was it. I'm happy with how I played. Obviously, I maybe made 1 or 2 bad calls here and there, but it's hard when they're playing so tight, and it's just hard to get put money in the middle.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was my situation. We still have I think 5 more MSO events to redeem ourselves, and as of right now in the standings, I'm in 7th place in the overall standings, and you're in 6th place.
That is true. Yeah, I think I am let me just double check this.
Sure.
I am the top ranking person who has not won a medal.
So that means I'm the 2nd top ranking person.
Yeah, so we're the top 2 for people who have not won medals. I think that's true. Yep, that's right. And so again, yeah, like I got 4th in one event. You almost, we both bubbled the medals. So hopefully, we got a few more events upcoming. I'll just pull up the schedule really quick. Yeah, so the next event is Heads Up Hold'em, which will be on Saturday. Then there is 6-card Omaha, another event I have no experience in, on Monday. Deuce for 7 triple draw is on Friday, March 10th. Texas Hold'em is Saturday, March 11th. And then the final event is Raz, which is Sunday, March 12th.
I believe I will be able to play in all those events, unlike the half of the first roster of events that happened. And it's funny, I'm in 7th place, so I'm just behind you, and I didn't even get to play the majority of 3 events that people earned points for. So I do wonder maybe if I had, obviously work is work. I can't just blow off work for poker like that. But you have to wonder, maybe I can continue this momentum here, and we'll maybe have a legit chance to get maybe bronze overall like you did last year. This totally within reach, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I am at 362.68 points. You are at 341.58 points. 3rd place is currently Ben Collister, who got 1st place last year. He's at 397.41 points. And then how it works is they've got some formula, which is above my pay grade as an English major, to determine the point system. And it's like your best 5 events, and it's through this formula, and that tabulates the score. I don't know. Math people can figure this out. But yeah, I mean, we both have to medal in an event, I think, to have a shot at this.
Or at the very least, just improve our, even your lower scores. Your top 5 scores from certain events are added together to make your conglomerate score. So you can even just kind of, get if I get 4 more 5th place finishes somehow, that's going to increase my score probably as much as being a 1st place would.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the easiest thing is to just get a medal. Yeah. I mean, that's just pretty straightforward, is to just get a medal.
But again, we're out of there's probably 30 plus regular players in each event, and we are in the top quarter of that field right now. So we've been in striking distance of at least a bronze medal. I think you're 30 points behind 3rd place, and I'm 20 points behind you. So again, one event can really swing things. And also we can always, if we end up at the same table as a player ahead of us, you kind of target them, make sure they don't improve their their standings in that way too. So we have some work to do, but I think it's possible.
Not that we're advocating for collusion. We're not advocating.
No. We're at different tables. Let's say the guy in first place right now, we just, oh, welcome, I'm playing him in res. Let's just raise his every bring in, stuff like that.
And hey, I'm the top ranking American, so there's that. I don't know how many Americans there are in the field, but
it's like 3 or 4 probably.
Yeah.
But we're first in America, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so that's MSO so far. And our next itinerary item for this podcast is an exclusive upcoming interview with the legendary Greg Fossilman Raymer, the 2004 main event champion.
Yeah, this is something that we've been working on for a while now. So we're really excited to be getting Greg Raymer on the show, which is just so weird to say out loud. That's like Greg Raymer is going to be on our show, but it's true. If you don't believe us, we'll show you.
We're moving up the final table results ladder. We've had a 4th place finisher. We've had a 9th place finisher. We've had a 14th or a 12th and a 15th place finisher. But we have a legit, incredible main event champion. But not just a champion, the guy who was the champion and the defending champion during like the peak poker television era, 04-05. And it was on many different programs and just was one of the biggest names. Arguably, I think he was almost as responsible as moneymaker for the poker boom, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, he's up there. I mean, he's, and also, I mean, he's put up results so much over the last 20 years. I mean, he was Heartland Poker Tour Player of the Year. He's been in all sorts of different events, and he's, he got 25th in 2005. He's no slouch at all. So it's really exciting. I mean, I have 2-3 pages of notes of questions and all that. I'm really excited for this. And then if you have any questions or comments you want to offer Greg Raymer, you can go ahead and drop them in the comments below.
Yes, I'm very excited. That'll be upcoming this weekend, and expect to see some of the biggest smiles on our faces you'll ever see us have on this podcast, and I am so excited.
Yeah.
So, guys, that about wraps up this mini-sode of the podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening. Enjoy your poker, enjoy your TV, and enjoy your poker on TV.
Take care, everyone. Episode 50 next time.
Woohoo! Yeah.